It's 711 AD. Tariq ibn Ziyad's armies landed Gibraltar, shattering the Visigothic kingdom at the Battle of Guadalete. Now, in months, nearly all of Iberia falls under Muslim rule. But this is no ordinary conquest. It sparks an 800-year war, a struggle for faith, power, and survival. From the mountains of Asturias to the plains of Granada, Christian kingdoms rise, fall, and then fight back. Now, this is the epic story of the Reconquista, the battle to reclaim Spain and shape the destiny of Europe. In 711 AD, Islamic armies swept across the Strait of Gibraltar, led by Tariq ibn Ziyad. Their victory over King Roderick of the Visigoths shattered the defenses of Iberia. Within a few years, nearly the entire peninsula fell under Muslim control, creating the province of Al-Andalus, a jewel of the Islamic world. Under Muslim rule, cities like Cordoba and Seville flourished, becoming centers of learning, architecture, and trade. The Moors introduced irrigation techniques, algebra, and libraries that would shape European knowledge for centuries. Yet while the Islamic Caliphate thrived, pockets of Christian resistance simmered in the north. The remnants of the Visigothic nobility fled into the mountains of Asturias, determined to fight back. In 718, Pelayo, a nobleman turned warrior, led a small band of Christians to victory at the Battle of Covadonga. Though modest in scale, this victory became a symbol of defiance, a rallying cry for generations of Christians who saw themselves as heirs to the lost Visigothic kingdom. The Muslim conquest set the stage for centuries of conflict, but it also created a multicultural Iberia where Muslims, Christians, and Jews all coexisted, sometimes peacefully, sometimes in turmoil. And from this chaos, the Reconquista was born. As the Moors consolidated their hold over Iberia, the Christian resistance took root in the rugged terrain of Asturias. Led by Pelayo, the Christians repelled further Muslim advances and established the Kingdom of Asturias. It was small and fragile, but its mere existence provided hope. Over the next 2 centuries, the Christian kingdoms would expand slowly. The kingdoms of León, Castile, and Navarre emerged as centers of resistance. These fragmented realms relied on mountainous defenses and guerrilla tactics to survive against superior Muslim forces. Yet, faith drove them forward. This belief that their fight was divinely ordained, a reconquest of Christian lands, kept them united despite internal rivalries. Religious identity played a central role. The victories of Christian warriors were credited to divine intervention, reinforcing the idea that reclaiming Iberia was God's will. Monasteries and churches multiplied in conquered areas, serving as both places of worship and fortresses. By the 10th century, the Christian kingdoms were no longer mere outposts. They had become organized and militarized forces capable of offensive campaigns. Their slow advance southward was the first step in an epic push to reclaim the peninsula. The 10th and early 11th centuries saw the emergence of powerful Christian kingdoms that would define the Reconquista. León became the first kingdom to assert dominance, while Castile and Navarre carved out their territories. Kings formed alliances through marriage, and the feudal system strengthened their control. Castles rose across the landscape, symbols of defiance and strength. The Kingdom of Castile, named after these fortifications, became the spearhead of expansion. Leaders like Sancho III of Navarre and Alfonso VI of León established dynasties that would consolidate power and push the frontier southward. Meanwhile, the Caliphate of Cordoba, once a beacon of Islamic culture, began to fracture. Internal struggles among Muslim factions, taifas, opened the door for Christian advances. Towns like Toledo and Zaragoza found themselves isolated, vulnerable to Christian encroachment. Yet the Reconquista was not just a war of armies, it was also a clash of cultures. In the Christian north, Islamic influences shaped architecture and farming practices. Moorish technology blended with medieval European tactics, making the Iberian Peninsula a crossroad of innovation. Now, this period set the stage for larger battles and more coordinated campaigns. As soon, Christian rulers began to see not just survival, but domination as their goal. By the 11th century, the Reconquista took on the character of a holy war. Christian rulers aligned their campaigns with the broader crusades that swept across Europe. Popes issued indulgences, granting spiritual rewards for fighting in Spain, turning the Reconquista into a cause for Christendom. Military orders like the Knights Templar and the Order of Santiago were formed, combining religious devotion with martial discipline. They built fortresses, secured supply lines, and fought on the front lines of Christian expansion. Yet, Muslim rulers did not stand idle. Almoravid and Almohad dynasties from North Africa reinvigorated Islamic defense. They launched counteroffensives, briefly reclaiming lost territories and fortifying key cities. But despite the setbacks, Christian forces grew stronger. Their unity, forged through alliances and faith, allowed them to recover from defeats and continue pushing south. Now, this religious fervor not only fueled soldiers, but also common people, who saw themselves as warriors in a divine struggle. The stage was now set for one of the most decisive battles in the entire Reconquista, the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa. The summer of 1212 saw one of the most pivotal confrontations in all of the Reconquista. A coalition of Christian forces, led by Alfonso VIII of Castile, clashed with the Almohad Caliphate in a fierce battle at Las Navas de Tolosa. The Christians, outnumbered and facing heavily fortified enemy lines, charged with desperation and faith. Victory came at a cost, but marked a turning point. The defeat shattered Almohad control in Iberia, leaving Muslim territories fractured and vulnerable. It also emboldened Christian leaders, accelerating the pace of conquest. This triumph resonated across all of Europe, seen as proof of divine favor for the Christian cause. Castile emerged as a dominant power, while other kingdoms like Aragon expanded eastward. Las Navas de Tolosa proved that unity among Christian rulers could overcome even the most formidable Islamic defenses. It wasn't just a military victory, but a symbolic one that transformed the Reconquista into an unstoppable force. After the triumph at Las Navas de Tolosa, the Christian kingdoms pressed their advantage. Castile and Aragon led the charge, capturing key Muslim cities and fortresses. Cordoba fell in 1236, followed by Seville in 1248. These victories shattered the remnants of Almohad rule, leaving only the Emirate of Granada as the last Muslim stronghold. The Christian advance was relentless, but not without resistance. Muslim defenders fought tenaciously, employing guerrilla tactics and leveraging mountain fortresses. Yet, internal divisions within the Muslim ranks made coordinated defense nearly impossible. Meanwhile, Christian monarchs capitalized on their momentum, attracting settlers to repopulate newly conquered territories. But despite the brutality of war, cultural exchanges persisted. Moorish artisans and architects were often spared, leaving behind stunning examples of Islamic art and architecture, like the Alhambra in Granada. Christian rulers adopted these influences, creating a unique fusion of cultures that still defines Spanish identity today. By the late 14th century, the Reconquista slowed. Plagues and political instability stalled Christian efforts, allowing Granada to hold out for another century. But its survival was only a temporary reprieve. The unification of Spain loomed on the horizon, and with it, the final chapter of the Reconquista. The marriage of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile in 1469 changed everything. Their union unified Spain's two most powerful kingdoms, creating a political and military juggernaut. Together, they turned their focus on Granada, the last Muslim stronghold. The campaign began in 1482, marked by a series of sieges and skirmishes that drained Granada's resources. Despite their resilience, the Muslim defenders faced starvation and internal dissent. Ferdinand and Isabella employed superior artillery, cutting off supplies and battering city walls. On January 2nd of 1492, Emir Muhammad XII, also known as Boabdil, surrendered Granada. Legend says he wept as he left the city, earning the scorn of his mother, who told him, "Weep like a woman for what you could not defend like a man." With Granada's fall, the Reconquista was complete. Catholic monarchs paraded through the city, raising the cross over the Alhambra and cementing their victory. It was both an end and a beginning. Spain was now a united Christian kingdom poised to shape the world. Victory brought sweeping changes. Ferdinand and Isabella enforced Catholic orthodoxy, issuing the Alhambra Decree in 1492, which expelled Jews who refused to convert. Muslims faced similar ultimatums, and by 1502, Islam was outlawed in Spain. The Spanish Inquisition intensified, targeting suspected heretics and enforcing religious conformity. Converts, known as moriscos and conversos, often faced suspicion and prosecution. While these actions solidified Catholic dominance, they also triggered economic and cultural losses. The expulsion of skilled Jewish and Muslim artisans, traders, and scholars all weakened urban economies. However, the monarchy did see the sacrifice as necessary to create a unified Christian Spain. Religious zeal fueled Spain's ambitions. Just months after Granada's fall, Christopher Columbus set sail, carrying the banner of Catholic Spain across the Atlantic. The Reconquista's legacy would echo through Spain's empire, shaping its global pursuits and identity. The Reconquista reshaped Spain's social and economic landscape. Vast territories were redistributed among Christian nobles and military orders, consolidating aristocratic power. Castles and walled cities became symbols of feudal dominance, while peasants toiled under harsh conditions. The departure of Jews and Muslims disrupted trade networks and agricultural practices. Cities like Toledo, once hubs of multiculturalism, became homogenized and inward-looking. Yet the crown saw unity as a strength, believing it would prevent internal strife. Spain's wealth also grew as newly claimed lands were exploited for resources. Agricultural reforms and irrigation systems inherited from the Moors improved productivity. However, this economic growth was often undermined by feudal conflicts and dependence on imported goods. The Reconquista created a rigid social hierarchy. Nobles and clergy held power, while commoners bore the burden of taxes and labor. This inequality foreshadowed struggles that would surface during Spain's later imperial era. During these challenges, Spain's identity as a Christian kingdom solidified, preparing it to dominate the age of exploration. The Reconquista's conclusion in 1492 coincided with the dawn of Spanish expansion overseas. Ferdinand and Isabella, emboldened by their victory, funded Columbus's voyage to the Americas. This new era mirrored the Reconquista's spirit. A quest for conquest, wealth, and religious conversion, Spanish explorers carried Catholicism to the New World, often imposing it through force. The concept of Reconquista became a justification for subjugating indigenous peoples, much like the Moors had been expelled from Iberia. Gold and silver from the Americas fueled Spain's rise as a global superpower. Yet the same intolerance that redefined the Reconquista also sowed seeds of unrest. Colonized populations resisted Spanish rules, just as Muslims had resisted Christian armies centuries earlier. The Reconquista's influence extended beyond conquest. It shaped Spain's legal systems, architectural style, and cultural identity, leaving an indelible mark on its colonies. The battle for Iberia had ended, but its legacy was only beginning. Stories of heroes like El Cid, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, defined the Reconquista's romanticized image. El Cid's campaigns blurred the lines between reality and legend, portraying him as both a warrior and a symbol of Christian resilience. Tales of hidden Moorish treasures and secret Muslim resistance captivated imaginations for centuries. Ballads and epics celebrated victories while mourning losses and betrayals. Even the Alhambra, preserved by the Catholic monarchs, became a symbol of Spain's layered history, a reminder of both conquest and cultural fusion. These myths sustained Spain's national identity, inspiring later generations. The Reconquista was more than just a military struggle. It became a narrative of divine destiny, shaping how Spain saw itself and its role in history. Modern Spain still bears the marks of the Reconquista. The fortified castles and cathedrals that dot its landscape remind us of battles long past. Moorish architecture, such as the Alhambra, preserves the legacy of Islamic influence. Politically, the unification of Spain under Ferdinand and Isabella laid the foundation for a centralized monarchy. Socially, the Reconquista's emphasis on Catholic identity continues to influence Spanish culture and traditions. The struggle also left scars, memories of intolerance and expulsion that echo in debates about identity and inclusion today. Yet, Spain's triumph remains a defining chapter in European history, one that shaped nations and continents alike. The Reconquista wasn't just the forging of a kingdom, it was the shaping of an empire. It set the stage for Spain's rise as a global power. But at what cost? Was it a tale of triumph or a warning against intolerance? Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through history, be sure to subscribe for more epic stories of conquest, faith, and ambition.